The company where my wife worked had just become one of my major clients. This was the first time I ever had a reason to step foot inside her office building. However, the moment she caught sight of me, her expression shifted. Her entire face was suddenly etched with visible panic and distress. "What are you doing here?" she asked under her breath. "Didn't I tell you that I have been completely swamped with work lately? Go home right now." "No, I actually came here for business." I did not even get the chance to finish my sentence. Her coworker cut me off and said, "Hey man, you should probably give up on whatever ideas you have about Ava. She already has a boyfriend," he added. I just smiled. I was just about to introduce myself to the guy. But the very next thing he said changed everything. It felt like a bucket of ice water was poured over me when he looked at her. "Ava, when are you planning to go public? When are you telling everyone about you and Ethan? I actually thought you came in today specifically to see him." They were laughing and talking, clearly enjoying each other's company. In that specific moment, everything finally became clear to me. That strange feeling of unease I had carried for the last 6 months. I finally knew exactly where it was coming from. I calmly placed the proposal folder down on the desk. "Make sure you bring some back for me later. I would love to taste some of that wedding candy at home." I stood inside the elevator. I took a moment to straighten my suit jacket and adjust my tie. This project was the result of my team grinding for 3 straight months. We had worked so hard to finally land this major client. We had revised the pitch deck 7 times already. Today was finally the day to submit the final version. The elevator display ticked up to the 23rd floor. As the door slid open, I took a deep breath and stepped out. This was my first time visiting the agency where Ava worked. The office was a high-end advertising firm. It was known as one of the top agencies in the city. The lobby was filled with bright, modern lighting. Beyond the floor-to-ceiling glass windows, the New York skyline stretched out beautifully. "Mr. Miller," a voice said, "please follow me this way." The receptionist spoke with a polite tone. She led me down the hall toward the main conference room. Just as I was turning the corner of the hallway, I caught the sound of a very familiar voice. Ava was leaning in, discussing a campaign in a low voice with someone. I slowed my pace and saw her standing with a sharply dressed man. They were standing almost shoulder to shoulder in the break area. Both of them were focused on a laptop screen. They seemed completely lost in their conversation. I recognized the man immediately. It was Ethan Sullivan. He had been in the same graduating class as Ava ever since he had joined this firm and taken the position of creative director. Ava had gone out of her way to request a transfer to his department. This concept is absolutely brilliant. Ava spoke with a voice full of genuine admiration. "You always have a way of capturing the core value of the brand instantly." Ethan laughed and shook his head, saying, "No, it is your unique perspective that makes it work. By the way, let me take you out to dinner tonight. I heard there's a new Michelin-starred place that just opened up." I stood there in silence, watching them laugh and flirt. This was certainly not the first time I had witnessed this scene. Ava's behavior toward Ethan. She had always been exceptionally warm and attentive to him. Whenever I mentioned how uncomfortable it made me feel, she would call me petty and tell me I did not understand modern office culture. "Director," a coworker walking by called out to her. "And who is this gentleman?" Ava looked up and caught my eye for a brief second. A flash of pure panic crossed her eyes. She regained her composure almost immediately. "I do not know him." Her voice was perfectly steady. She spoke as if I were a total stranger who did not matter at all. Ethan turned his head to look at me. He gave me a polite but incredibly cold and distant smile. "Is this gentleman here to drop off a proposal?" I tightened my grip on the folder in my hands. My throat felt tight, and I could not find the words to speak. Right at that moment, 2 female co-workers walked over, giggling together. "Ava, you and Ethan are such a perfect power couple. When are we finally getting that wedding invitation?" Ava did not bother to deny the comment. She just let out a soft laugh and responded half-jokingly, "Oh, stop talking nonsense." In that moment, the realization hit me hard. Almost everyone at her company, they all assumed that Ava and Ethan were a couple. And this supposed misunderstanding, it had clearly been allowed to flourish for a long time. It was very likely that Ava had intentionally chosen not to correct it. "Mr. Miller," the receptionist prompted me from the side. "The conference room is right this way." I finally snapped out of my daze. I gave a small nod. I followed her into the glass-walled conference room. Several executives were already seated around a large table. They were busy flipping through their documents and notes. I forced myself to focus and push the emotions aside. I began the formal presentation of our marketing strategy. 20 minutes later, I walked out of the conference room. Ava and Ethan were no longer in the lobby area, but the sound of that laughter, it continued to echo in the back of my mind. The elevator doors began to slide shut. They reflected my tired and drained expression. My suit was still perfectly pressed. My tie was still knotted exactly right. I looked exactly the same as when I had arrived. But this outward appearance of dignity, after hearing Ava say those words, saying that she did not know me, it all felt incredibly pathetic and hollow. I pressed the button for the lobby. I watched the floor numbers slowly count down on the display. This time around, I did not chase after her to demand an explanation. I did not even send a text asking what that was all about. A light drizzle had started to fall outside. I stood under the awning of the glass office tower. I watched people with umbrellas hurry past me. Their silhouettes quickly vanished into the gray rain. By the time I arrived back at the house, it was already late in the evening. The lights in the living room were turned off, but with the faint glow coming through the window, I noticed an expensive-looking box sitting on a coffee table. It was wrapped in high-quality black paper. The paper featured elegant gold embossed patterns. A famous Creative Award logo was printed in the corner. I switched on the floor lamp. I carefully unwrapped the gift box. Inside was a limited edition set of award-winning portfolios. A small card was tucked in right next to it. "Congratulations to Ethan Sullivan for winning Creative of the Year. This exclusive special edition set is dedicated to the person who truly understands my vision." The handwriting on that card, I recognized it immediately as Ethan Sullivan's script. I casually flipped open the portfolio book. There was a small post-it note stuck to the first page. "Thank you, Ava Miller, for your constant support and encouragement." A sudden wave of bitterness washed over me. 3 months ago, I had given Ava a copy of my own professional portfolio. It was a collection of my best work over 5 years at my last firm. It represented every major success of my career. I spent a whole week working on it. I printed and bound every single page myself. This creative direction is just so generic. She had glanced through it for a second before tossing it aside. Advertising agencies do not do things this way anymore. There is absolutely no originality in this work. I still remember trying to defend my work that day. These are all successful campaigns that actually went live. So what if they went live? She had cut me off mid-sentence. Going live doesn't mean the work is actually good. You really should look at the work Ethan Sullivan does. Every project of his has a completely unique perspective. It is the kind of work that truly stands out. After that day, my portfolio had simply disappeared from the house. It was probably thrown straight into the trash can. But now, Ethan Sullivan's professional portfolio. It was sitting right in the center of our coffee table. It was being displayed like a prized piece of art. I picked up the book and looked at it. It was full of every award-winning campaign he had ever done. I had to admit the truth to myself. The work was genuinely impressive on every single page. In the blank margins of the pages, Ava had written detailed notes in pencil everywhere. Her handwriting was neat and elegant. I suddenly recalled what happened last week. When I showed her the first draft of my team's proposal, she had barely even looked at the pages. She just said it was far too conservative. She told me I should try to learn from Ethan. "You need to look at Ethan Sullivan's work." Her eyes had literally lit up when she spoke. He always identifies the brand's core problems instantly. His creative vision has so much depth, and his work has real heart and warmth. I slowly closed the portfolio book. I walked over toward the window. I lit a cigarette and watched the rain. The city lights began to sparkle in the dark. Rows of neon signs flickered to life in the distance. They traced a sharp outline of the city skyline. My phone suddenly buzzed in my pocket. It was an iMessage from Ava. I'm not coming home for dinner tonight. I'm going to discuss a new project with Ethan and his team. I stared at the text message on the screen. I suddenly remembered what she had said last night. That Ethan's winning work had heart and warmth. Yes, it did. His work certainly had plenty of heart. But my marriage with Ava, it was slowly growing cold and distant. I set my phone down on the counter. I walked in my home office. From the very bottom drawer of the desk, I pulled out a thick brown envelope. Inside were all the projects from over the years, the work that I was actually proud of. They might not have been breathtaking to look at, but page after page, they were the result of countless sleepless nights. I had never shown any of this to Ava. Maybe it was a sense of insecurity, or perhaps I was simply afraid of being rejected by her one more time. But at that moment, I understood everything. The problem was never about whether my work was good. It was about the fact that, in her mind, no matter what I did, I would never be able to measure up to Ethan Sullivan. The rain began to fall heavily against the window again. It made a steady pattering sound against the glass. I slowly flipped through the pages of my own portfolio. The rain and the rustling paper blurred together. It completely drowned out the noise of the city outside, until I finally heard the sound of the front door unlocking. That sound snapped me out of my thoughts. The clicking sound of Ava's high heels. It grew louder as she walked toward the room. I could hear her talking to someone in a soft voice. Her voice was bright and full of laughter. "Make yourself comfortable. I will get a glass of water for you." That sounded good. I recognized Ethan Sullivan's voice immediately. I walked out of my office. I saw Ethan looking around our living room. He was wearing a very expensive casual blazer. He was still holding that award-winning portfolio. "Hey, James." He gave me a quick smile. His eyes scanned me from head to toe. There was a clear sense of judgment in his look. "You have a pretty nice place here." Then his expression changed, and he frowned. "But having these ad magazines scattered everywhere, it makes the whole room look very cheap." Those specific magazines, they were industry journals I had subscribed to for years. I had studied every single issue in detail. I had filled the back covers with my own notes. Ava came out of the kitchen with a glass of water. As soon as she heard what Ethan said, she immediately agreed with him. "Exactly. I have told him so many times already. He insists on piling those magazines all over the house. He makes the place look like a thrift store." Ethan took the glass of water. He took a slow and refined sip. "Ava, let us get back to the matter at hand." He turned his attention toward me. "James, the agency recently landed a very large project. We are currently restructuring the creative department. Ava mentioned that you have not been performing well lately, so she suggested something. I suggested that you step down from the core creative team." Ava interrupted him to speak for herself. Her eyes were fixed directly on me. "Your recent proposals have been far too conservative. You're no longer able to keep up with the team's pace." My knuckles turned white as I gripped the table. My palms were starting to feel sweaty. Is it because of something else? Is it because my style is different from Ethan Sullivan's? "This is not about style." Ethan set his glass down on the table. His tone was incredibly condescending. "This is a question of actual capability. The proposal you submitted last week, it failed to grasp even the most basic market insights. The creative angle was just the same old routine." Ava nodded her head in agreement. "I also feel like you have been coasting lately. You spend all day looking at those outdated magazines. You really should look at Ethan. He is already researching metaverse marketing strategies." "So what of it?" I let out a short and cold laugh. "Just because I'm not focused on the metaverse, I should be kicked off the creative team?" "James." Ava's voice suddenly rose in pitch. "What is with this attitude of yours? Ethan Sullivan is actually trying to help you, given your current level of performance. You simply cannot handle the core creative work anymore." "Helping me?" I pointed toward the portfolio on the coffee table. "Him giving you that portfolio is for my benefit. The way he lets everyone at work think you are a couple. Is that for my benefit as well?" Ethan put on a look of total innocence. "James, you are completely misunderstanding the situation. I have always had the utmost respect for Ava. Please do not jump to conclusions. That is enough." Ava stood up abruptly from the sofa. "James, if you continue to be so unreasonable, then do not blame me for what happens next." Looking at her furious and agitated face, I felt a wave of exhaustion wash over me. What exactly do you want me to do? Starting tomorrow morning, you're being moved to the execution team. She spoke in a very cold voice. The core creative side of things will now be led entirely by Ethan Sullivan. Her tone made it clear there was no room for debate. I do not agree to that. Ava seemed stunned for a second. She clearly did not expect me to say no. What did you just say? I said that I do not agree. I repeated the words slowly and clearly. I was the one who brought this client and myself. I built this creative team from the ground up. Why on earth should I have to hand it over to him? Ethan decided to speak up as well. James, please do not get so emotional about this. Given your actual skill level, the only reason you are still in the creative department is because Ava has been looking out for you. Ethan spoke in a very calm and slow manner, but every single word was meant to sting. Letting you focus on execution is actually better for your long-term career. James, he is absolutely right. You simply do not know what is good for you. She shouted right back at me. She jabbed her finger toward the front door. Go and pack your things right now. Report to the execution team tomorrow morning. I stared at her finger pointing at me. I suddenly found myself smiling. Fine, you want me on the execution team, fine. But before I do that, I will delete every single piece of data for this project. I will wipe it all completely clean. You would not dare. Ava's face turned white as a sheet. Why wouldn't I dare? I pulled my phone out of my pocket. I looked at the two of them coldly. I created every single part of this myself. Since you both think it is completely worthless, then I will be the one to delete it myself. After Ethan and Ava finally left the house, the living room became incredibly quiet. I was the only person left sitting on the sofa. The rain was still falling steadily outside. The city lights were blurred by the heavy rain. My phone screen lit up several times. It was a text message from a close friend. Hey, James, your wife just posted something on Facebook. I opened up Ava's latest post. It had been posted only 10 minutes ago. In the photograph, she and Ethan Sullivan were at a Michelin-starred restaurant. The table was set with gourmet food and wine. The caption on the post said, "Having dinner with the person who truly understands creativity. I'm really looking forward to our new project together." The comment section was already very active. Her coworkers were all joining in the conversation. This director power couple is just so perfect together. When are we finally getting that wedding cake? Just waiting for Director Sullivan to make it official. Looking at all of these suggestive comments, Ava made absolutely no attempt to hide them. She would occasionally reply with a smiley face, or she would give a very casual response. I had seen this kind of game many times before. I was all too familiar with this behavior. Every single time we had an argument, she would post something ambiguous like this. She would hint that she could be taken by another man who actually appreciated her. In the past, whenever I saw something like that, I would start to feel incredibly anxious. I would call her immediately to apologize. I would send her text after text. I would even buy her favorite desserts and bring them directly to her office building. That was exactly the reaction she was looking for. She was just waiting for me to cave in, to apologize and beg for her to come home, so that she could show off to her coworkers. She loved feeling superior and smug, but this time was different. I only felt a sense of irony and disgust. I closed the Facebook app on my phone. I opened up my laptop. I began responding to my work emails. My phone kept vibrating over and over. They were all missed calls from Ava Miller. I knew exactly what she was waiting for. She was waiting for me to act like I always did, to frantically try and reach out to her, to apologize and admit that I was wrong, to beg for her forgiveness once again. A notification chimed on my desk. An iMessage popped up on the screen. James, are you really going to act like this again? I did not reply to her message. A second message came immediately after. If you're feeling upset about something, then you should just call me. What is this supposed to mean? Why aren't you answering my calls? Then a third message appeared. James, if you continue to act like this, I'm going to be very angry with you. I put my phone on silent and set it face down. I pulled my attention back to the computer screen. I continued revising the proposal for my client. This project was extremely important for my career. I could not let personal relationship problems ruin the professional work I had to do. It was 2 o'clock in the morning. I finally finished the very last round of revisions. I finally picked up my phone again. The display showed a long list of notifications. There were 36 missed calls from Ava Miller. The very last message she sent said, "If you do not reply to me right now, then do not blame me for what I might do." I stared at that threatening message for a moment. I felt a strange sense of relief wash over me. It was an indescribable feeling of freedom. In the past, I had always been terrified of losing her. I was afraid she would leave me and go straight into another man's arms. But now I finally understood the truth. I had lost her a very long time ago. Or perhaps, I never really truly had her to begin with. I set my phone down on the desk. I walked out onto the balcony. I lit another cigarette. The rain had finally stopped falling. The moonlight was breaking through the clouds. It made the wet streets in the distance glow. The neon signs were still flickering in the night. They traced the sharp outline of New York. My phone buzzed one more time. This time it was not a message from Ava. It was a message from a professional headhunter. "Director Miller, I heard you might be looking for new opportunities. I have a very good position open right now. Would you be available for a quick chat?" I stared at the message on the screen. I could not help but smile to myself. On a quiet Saturday afternoon, I was in my home office updating my resume. I heard the sound of the front door opening. Ava had finally come home. She brought with her the scent of fresh food. "James Miller." Her voice was surprisingly gentle when she called out. "I made those sweet and sour ribs you love so much." I walked out my office. There were several dishes and soup already on the table. Ava was wearing her kitchen apron. She was busy setting the table. When she saw me walk into the room, she gave me a warm smile that I had not seen in years. "Give this a try. I learned this recipe from the lady at work." She handed me a bowl of hot soup. "You haven't been eating properly lately, have you?" I had just taken hold of the bowl. The wonderful aroma hit me instantly. I remembered the last time she had cooked for me. It was on my birthday 3 years ago. After that, she always said cooking was too much trouble. She had not stepped into the kitchen ever since. "Have you been working too many hours lately?" She sat down in the chair across from me. "I have noticed you staying up very late every night. You're starting to get dark circles under your eyes." I took a slow sip of the soup. The taste was exactly how I liked it. Ava noticed that I was staying quiet. She placed another rib into my bowl. "Regarding the things that happened the other day," she looked down at her plate. "I was in the wrong. I should not have said I didn't know you at work." I set my silverware down. "And then what?" "And then, I think we should just move past this." She looked up into my eyes. Her expression looked incredibly sincere. "I promise that nothing like that will ever happen again. You really should not worry about Ethan Sullivan. We truly are nothing more than professional colleagues." I stared at her for a long moment. Everything about the situation, it all felt incredibly familiar to me. Every single time we had a major argument, she would try to make peace in exactly this way. She would speak with a very soft and sweet voice. She would look so sincere while admitting her faults, combined with a few of my favorite home-cooked meals. A phone started ringing loudly. Ava's phone suddenly started ringing on the table. She took a quick look at the caller ID. She immediately declined the call. A few seconds later, it started ringing again. "You should answer it." I spoke up. She hesitated for a moment. She finally pressed the button to answer. "Hello, Ethan Sullivan? What?" The client changed the proposal at the last minute. Her facial expression immediately grew tense. "Right now? Okay, I understand. I will head over to the office immediately." She hung up the phone. She stood up from the table instantly. "James, I am so sorry, but something came up at the office. The client wants to revise the proposal. It is urgent, so you have to go." I finished her sentence for her. "Can Ethan Sullivan not handle it on his own?" She paused while she was putting on her shoes. "This project is my personal responsibility. I simply cannot stay here." "Ava Miller." I called her name to stop her. "Do you have any idea what day it is today?" She stood still. "What day is it?" "It is our 4th wedding anniversary." A moment of panic flashed in her eyes. It was quickly replaced by a sense of urgency. "I am so sorry. I truly have to go right now. I will make it up to you when I get back tonight, okay?" I watched her hurrying toward the door. I suddenly spoke up. "There is no need to make it up to me." "What did you say?" "What I'm saying is, You will never have to make anything up to me again. James, what exactly do you mean by that? She stopped right by the door. She turned around to look at me. She stared at me. Are you being serious right now? I am very serious about this. I said calmly. I have already drafted the divorce papers. When you are done working with your true love, then you can just sign them. I looked at Ava's shocked face. I slowly closed the door to the office. The headhunter had scheduled an interview for me. It was for the creative director position at Sunflower. While I was waiting in their main conference room, I noticed a long row of award certificates on the wall. The one right in the middle. It was the exact same award Ethan Sullivan had just won. James Miller. Mr. Miller, it is an honor to finally meet you. The interviewer was a professional young woman. She sat down and spoke with a friendly smile. We have been very impressed with your work at the agency. Your performance there was truly remarkable. Specifically that campaign for the sports brand last year. The viral marketing campaign you created. I paused for a moment. That was definitely one of the highlights of my career. But I had never actually included it in my own portfolio. We conducted a very thorough background check on your work. She seemed to sense my confusion. She continued to explain the situation. Even though many projects are credited to the entire team, we are very aware of the truth, that the core creative ideas all came from you, including that recent award-winning campaign. I forced a small smile. That award-winning project is officially considered Ethan Sullivan's work. Ethan Sullivan. She flipped through the papers on the table. Oh, you mean the project where they changed the names? The one where they swapped the credit right before the finals? We are aware of what happened. When the concept was first proposed 3 months ago, the ideas were entirely yours. My knuckles tightened as I listened. I finally had the answer I was looking for. So that award-winning project had actually been stolen by someone else. No wonder during the pitch meeting, Ethan Sullivan knew every single detail. It was as if he had memorized a script. The interview went very well. Before I left the building, the interviewer said one last thing to me. If you're willing to join our team, we will give you complete creative control over your work. Both creative control and team management authority. And of course, the compensation will be much higher. At least 50% higher than your current salary. When I walked out of the Sunflower building, I had a lot of complicated emotions running through me. When I finally got back home, I found Ava Miller already sitting in the living room. Where have you been all this time? Her voice sounded like she was interrogating me. Everyone at the agency has been looking for you. I did not give her an answer. I walked straight into my home office. She followed me right into the room. I heard that you have been sending out your resume. Have you completely lost your mind? The agency is in a very critical stage right now. A critical stage? I turned around to look her in the eye. Are you talking about how Ethan Sullivan is getting ready to enter a competition using my creative work? Her facial expression shifted instantly. What are you even talking about? That award-winning campaign from last year. That was always his work. Ava Miller. I interrupted her before she could continue. Do you really think I am completely unaware of the truth? You were the one who gave all my ideas to Ethan Sullivan. You had my name removed right before the finals. Did you honestly think I would never find out? She was silent for several seconds. Then she suddenly spoke in a much softer tone. James, please listen to my explanation. This was a decision made at the corporate level. They felt that given Ethan Sullivan's seniority, he was better suited to be the face of the project. And what about right now? I let out a cold laugh. Are you planning to kick me off the creative team and then hand all of my hard work directly over to him? How could you even think such a thing? She began to look very anxious. I'm actually doing this for your own good. Do you have any idea how extensive Ethan Sullivan's industry connections are? If you just choose to cooperate with him, you will have so many opportunities in the future. I do not need that. I opened up my laptop. I pulled up an email and showed it to her. I already have a much better opportunity. She leaned in to read the contents of the email. Her face turned pale instantly. You are actually going to Sunflower? That is correct. Do not do that. She suddenly slammed my laptop shut. You cannot take that job. Do you realize that Ethan Sullivan has a history with the director at Sunflower? If you take a position there, how will you ever survive in this industry? I opened my laptop back up. That is not something you need to worry about. James Miller. She stepped in front of me to block my way. If you dare to go to Sunflower, then I will. Then you will do what? I looked directly into her eyes. Are you going to post another photo with Ethan Sullivan? Or are you going to let him steal my work again? She was completely stunned. A clear look of panic flashed in her eyes. The afternoon sunlight was slanting into the room. It cast a long shadow across her face. Are you truly going to work for Sunflower? Ava's voice was trembling as she spoke. I went back to packing my documents on the desk. Yes, I am going there. You cannot do this to me. She suddenly grabbed my wrist. Do you have any idea how serious the conflict is between Ethan Sullivan and their director? If you choose to join Sunflower, it is like you're declaring war on the whole industry. I pull my hand away from her. And why should I care? Just for you and Ethan Sullivan. I'm supposed to just give up this opportunity? This is not about your pride. Her eyes were turning red from the stress. Do you honestly believe that Sunflower actually values your work? They are only hiring you because they want to use you against Ethan Sullivan. I stopped what I was doing. I looked up at her face. So, in your professional opinion, I will never be as good as Ethan Sullivan, will I? That is not what I am saying. Her tone of voice softened slightly. I am truly trying to think about your future. If you stay at your current agency, Ethan Sullivan and I can look after you. Everything will be much easier for you. Look after me. I let out another cold laugh. Just like how you looked after me, by putting Ethan Sullivan's name on my creative work. She bit her lip in silence. She could not find a single word to say. I opened my desk drawer. I took out a specific document. Since you are so concerned about my well-being, then you really should take a look at this. What is this paper? These are the divorce papers. Ava's face went completely pale. What do you mean by this? Exactly what it looks like. I slid the papers across the desk toward her. I want a divorce. That is never going to happen. She threw the papers onto the floor. You are dreaming if you think I will sign. I leaned over and picked the papers up. And why is it impossible? You still have Ethan Sullivan, don't you? You. She suddenly became very quiet. A mocking smile appeared on her lips. Do you truly believe that after you leave me, you will be able to survive in this industry? What exactly do you mean? My father is the vice president of the association. Ethan Sullivan is a top creative director. All I have to do is make one phone call. And from now on, no advertising agency will ever consider hiring you again. So you are actually threatening me now? I spoke before she could continue. I am simply giving you a reminder. Her voice was dripping with anger. Do you really think that your small amount of talent can impress Sunflower? Without Ethan Sullivan and me, you are absolutely nothing. I looked at her in total silence. The woman I once thought I was deeply in love with. At this very moment, she had finally dropped all of her pretenses. All the unease I had felt over the last few months finally had a very clear answer. In her professional opinion, I was never an equal partner to her. I was just a convenient tool for her to use. Ava Miller, you are absolutely right. I gave a slow nod. Without Ethan Sullivan and you, I truly am nothing at all. Her facial expression softened slightly. I am glad you finally understand. So, before she could say another word, I had already opened the voice memo app on my phone. So, the time when you and Ethan Sullivan decided to change my work to his name. I have a full recording of that conversation, including all the threats you just made. Would you like to listen to it with me? Her face became as white as a sheet of paper. When did you do that? From the very first time that you handed my creative work over to Ethan Sullivan. I turned off the screen of my phone. Now, can we have a real conversation about the divorce? Ava slumped down into the office chair. Tears finally began to fall from her eyes. James Miller, you have changed so much. It suddenly began to rain outside. The sound of rain hitting the glass. It was the only sound in the entire room. Do we really have to let it end like this? Ava spoke with a voice full of tears. Her voice echoed through the quiet room. The rain continued to pour down. I stood silently by the window, looking at the blurred lights of the city. What else can we do? How else did you think this would end? What exactly do you want from me? She walked up right behind me. We have been together for so many years. Are you really going to be this cold? Cold. I turned around to face her. I looked her in the eyes. Ava Miller, in all these years, when did you ever show me any real love? She stood there in shock. Tears were still streaming down her face. From the very first day we met, I stared directly into her eyes. When was the last time that you actually cared about my feelings? You have constantly belittled my professional work. My efforts were always brushed aside. Even my professional reputation. You gave it to someone else without thinking. I know that was wrong. She lowered her head in shame. I'm truly sorry. Can we just try to start over? I slowly shook my head. That is not necessary. And why not? She suddenly looked up at me. Her gaze became very sharp. Is it because of that woman from Sunflower? Have you known her for a very long time? I was momentarily taken aback. Before I realized what she was implying. Did you actually have someone follow me? I was just worried that something would happen. She bit her lip nervously. That is enough. I interrupted her immediately. I've already signed the divorce papers. Have you signed your part yet? Not yet. She suddenly grabbed the papers from the table. Unless you give me your word that you will not work for Sunflower. I looked at her face, looking at how out of control she was. I felt a deep sense of professional exhaustion. Ava Miller, what is it that you actually want from me? I only want you to stay by my side. Her voice cracked as she spoke to me. I know that I have made many mistakes, but I truly cannot live without you. You cannot live without me. I let out a cold laugh. Or is it that you cannot let go of the person who feeds Ethan Sullivan ideas? Her entire body began to tremble. Just sign the papers. I placed the pen in her hand. Do not let this relationship end. Without even a shred of dignity left, she took the pen from me. Her hand was shaking uncontrollably. You are going to regret this. Perhaps I will. I looked out at the rain. But it is better than living like this. Ava looked down at the paper. Tears fell onto the divorce papers one by one. Her hand stayed over the signature line for a long time. She finally signed her name on the document. Here you go. She slid the papers back over to me. Her voice sounded very hoarse. You are finally free. I put the divorce papers away safely. I turned and walked out of the office. I heard her voice from behind me. James Miller, do you truly hate me that much? The rain was finally starting to let up. The sky was starting to get lighter. I did not turn around. I only said one thing in a low voice. I do not hate you. I have simply finally woken up. Ava did not say another word to me. Only the sound of her crying remained in the room. I opened the front door. I looked into the living room. The dishes she had made were still on the table. They were already starting to get cold. 1 year later, Director Miller. The venue for the product launch has been set. My assistant Mark pushed open the office door. He poked his head into the room. By the way, I just received some news. Our rival agency is also attending the event. I looked up from a marketing proposal. Which rival? Mark lowered his voice significantly. It is your old advertising agency. Ethan Sullivan is leading the team himself. I heard that Ava Miller will be there too. I understand. I gave a small nod. I went back to looking at my documents. During this past year, my team and I landed several major clients. The new social marketing model we developed had caused quite a stir in the industry. Today's launch event was essentially a celebration for my team for winning the Creative of the Year award. The irony is that this was the same award Ethan Sullivan won, using the creative work he stole from me. Director Miller, should we make any changes to the seating? Mark seemed a bit hesitant. I closed the folder on my desk. Let us just stick to the original plan. The launch was scheduled for 6 o'clock. I arrived at the venue half an hour early. The hall was filled with industry professionals. Director Miller. Someone waved at me from across the room. I heard that this year's creative vision is quite groundbreaking for the industry. I was just about to respond to him when a sudden commotion began at the entrance. I turned my head to look. Ethan Sullivan and Ava Miller walked in together. Ava was wearing a long black dress. Her makeup looked absolutely flawless. She took a look around the room. Her eyes finally rested on me. She paused for a very brief moment. It has been a long time. Ethan Sullivan walked over with a polite smile. I hear that Director Miller is doing very well over at Sunflower. I raised my wine glass toward him. I appreciate the sentiment. Director Miller is far too modest. There was a clear hint of sarcasm in his voice. By the way, I'm actually quite curious. The creative vision for this project was also borrowed from our agency. Before I could say a single word in response, a very clear and sharp voice interrupted the conversation from the side. That is not a fair thing to say, Ethan Sullivan. It was Rita Harrison, our chief designer. She walked over holding a glass of red wine. Her smile was elegant and very composed. Director Sullivan, have you already forgotten? That borrowed project from last year. Whose creative idea that actually was? Ethan Sullivan's face darkened slightly. Ms. Harrison, what are you trying to imply by that? Nothing at all. Rita gave a casual shrug of her shoulders. I'm just giving you a reminder that it is easy to speak too soon, and you might end up embarrassed. Ava Miller took a step forward. And who exactly are you? Who am I? Rita glanced sideways at me and smiled. Her smile became even more radiant. I'm the person who interviewed Director Miller last year. Tell me, Ava Miller, you surely must remember me. Didn't you go out of your way back then to have someone follow us around? Ava Miller's face turned white instantly. Director Miller. Rita took hold of my arm affectionately. It is time for us to head to the stage. I gave a simple nod. I waved a hand at the two of them. I turned around and walked away. I could faintly hear Ava Miller's voice behind me. James Miller, did you really do all of this for her? Is that why you have come this far? Rita stopped walking for a second. She turned back to look at Ava Miller. Ava Miller, you are completely mistaken. We are nothing more than colleagues. But I still want to thank you. Thank you for what? Of course I do. Rita's eyes were sparkling as she smiled. If you had not personally pushed such a talented man away, our advertising agency would never have had the chance to hire such an amazing creative director. After the product launch event had finished, I was backstage with my creative team. We were confirming all the follow-up details. Ava Miller suddenly appeared at the door. Can we talk for just a few minutes? Her voice was surprisingly calm and level. Rita Harrison gave me a quick look. I gave a nod of approval. It is okay. You guys go ahead and celebrate without me. In the private lounge area, only Ava Miller and I were left in the room. She stood there silently. She looked around the minimalist room. You seem to be doing very well for yourself. I'm doing all right. I gave her a short answer. That woman, Rita Harrison. She bit her lower lip. Are the two of you in a relationship? I slowly shook my head. I told you a long time ago that we are nothing more than colleagues. Is that true? She took a few steps closer toward me, but I can clearly see it. The way she looks at you is very different. Ava Miller. I interrupted her before she could say more. You did not come here today just to ask me questions like that. She was silent for a few moments. Then she suddenly spoke up. Ethan Sullivan proposed to me. I was momentarily surprised. Then I gave her a small smile. Congratulations to you. Is that really your only reaction? She looked me directly in the eyes. Do you truly not care at all? Why should I care about that? James Miller. Her voice suddenly became much louder. Do you have any idea what this past year has been like for me? I spend every single day in regret, regretting the way I treated you. I leaned back against the table. And then what? I turned down Ethan Sullivan's proposal. Her eyes immediately filled with tears because I finally realized that I still cannot forget about you. James Miller, can we please try to start over? Looking at this woman with tears on her face, it made me immediately remember that rainy night from a year ago. She was acting exactly the same way then, crying and saying she could not live without me. Do you know what the biggest thing I learned this year is? I asked her in a very quiet voice. She looked up at me expectantly. What is it? I have finally understood what real love actually is. It is not about losing your entire identity just to make the other person happy. It is about helping the other person grow while making sure you're not drained. I am capable of changing. She spoke to me with urgency. I understand everything now. You are so much better than Ethan Sullivan. Just look at how well you are doing at Sunflower. That is enough. I stopped her before she could say more. Ava Miller, you still do not understand. The thing that you love right now is not who I am as a person. It is the version of me now, the successful and famous creative director. That is not how it is. I truly, if I were still today, that unknown creative working in the background, with no reputation and no big title, Would you still be here looking for me? She stood there completely frozen. She could not find a single word to respond. There was a sudden knock on the door. It was Rita Harrison. Director Miller. The client is asking for you. I will be there in just a moment. I took a second to straighten my suit. I looked toward Ava Miller one last time. Take care of yourself. Just as I reached the exit, she called out to me from behind. James Miller. Is there really no chance at all for us? I did not look back at her. I simply opened the door, and I walked out of the room. During the celebration banquet, Ethan Sullivan walked over to me. Director Miller, would you like to step outside for a smoke? He rattled a pack of cigarettes in his hand. The breeze on the terrace was a little chilly. The lights of the city in the distance were sparkling beautifully in the dark. Ethan Sullivan offered me a cigarette. I waved my hand to decline. I quit smoking. Is that so? He lit a cigarette for himself. He exhaled a cloud of smoke. I heard something. That Ava Miller went to see you. I leaned against the balcony railing. That is true. She turned down my marriage proposal. He slowly blew smoke into the night sky. Do you know why she did it? Ethan Sullivan, you really do not need to tell me this. Well, he let out a short and bitter laugh. To be honest with you, I have always felt a sense of guilt about that award-winning campaign last year. I turned my head to look at him. So what about it? So I wanted to offer you an apology. And I also want to ask a favor. Please go easy on Ava Miller. He flicked his cigarette butt into the tray. She truly regrets what she did. Have you ever considered exactly why she turned you down? I stood up straight. He seemed confused. What are you implying? Because you are no longer the person, the most successful person in her mind. I looked toward the distant neon signs. Exactly like what happened a year ago, when she decided to dismiss me. Ethan Sullivan was silent for a long time. He finally spoke up. You have changed a great deal. People always change eventually. I said calmly. I walked back into the banquet hall. My assistant Mark ran over to me. He looked incredibly excited. Director Miller, I have great news. We got a slot for the Regional Advertising Festival. He lowered his voice and continued. The judging committee mentioned the work from your previous agency could be officially re-attributed to your name. I smiled and shook my head. That is not necessary. All of that is in the past now. But let's just focus on this current competition. I gave him a light pat on the shoulder. We should only be looking forward, never backward. By the time the banquet finally finished, it was already very late at night. Rita Harrison walked over to me. Would you like me to give you a ride home? No, thank you. I think I want to walk for a while. That is fine. She gave me a friendly smile. By the way, if Ava Miller tries to contact you again, she will not be coming back. I said confidently. The person she is looking for has never actually been me. Just the version of me in her imagination. The streets were quiet at night. The streetlights cast very long shadows. Many memories began to flash through my mind. The excitement I felt when I first met Ava Miller. The pain I felt when she said she did not know me. And the specific moment I signed the divorce papers. The sudden sense of relief that I felt. I walked past a local convenience store. I went inside and bought a can of beer. Standing at the checkout counter, a young clerk was working there. He was staring at an advertisement on his tablet. That is a very good creative concept. I made a casual remark to him. I know, right? His eyes immediately lit up. I heard that. Sunflower's new creative director created it. It is incredibly creative. I just smiled as I paid for my beer. I did not bother to tell him that I was the person who created it. I walked out of the convenience store. The night breeze had a hint of spring chill. My phone suddenly buzzed in my hand. It was a text message from Rita Harrison. Director Miller, for the team meeting tomorrow morning. Please do not be late. I tilted my head back. I looked up at the night sky. I finished the very last sip of my beer. I looked up at the starlight above me. During this past year, I lost a personal relationship, but I found a much more complete version of myself. The traffic light ahead turned to green. I threw the empty can into a trash bin, and I began to walk forward. The night grew darker around me. The city's neon signs were still glowing, lighting the path for the road ahead of me, illuminating my way step by step. At the end of the journey, James finally understood that the truest goodbye is becoming a better man while letting her become a stranger. Ava's regret did not stem from love. It came from realizing the man she once dismissed had become a star far beyond her reach. To someone selfish, love is merely a transaction of value rather than a connection between two souls. She never actually loved the humble husband who gave her everything. She only craved the successful director he had become. In this life, we all encounter people who drain us. They exhaust your passion and then complain that you're no longer bright enough. Please remember that if a relationship only leaves you feeling small and exhausted, it is not helping you. It is destroying you. Walking away from the wrong person is not a loss. It is the moment you finally decide to win back your own life. The greatest regret in life is not losing someone who does not love you. It is losing the brilliant person you used to be because of them. If you were in his shoes and saw through all of her calculations, would you ever choose to look back?